Dan Windle is in studio with Simon and myself. Dan, where are we at with Jorginho and what is the nature of the deal?
Arsenal speaking to Jorginho ahead of a deadline day move from Chelsea, who believe the fee has been agreed, £10 million rising to $12 million with add-ons. 18-month deal with an option for a further year on top of that. So
18. Wow.
Yeah, 18-month deal with an option to add a further one off the back of that.
That's a kind of short-term risk, isn't it, Simon?
Yes. I mean, he's at that stage in his career where you're not looking to offer him a hugely extended contract. But for him, he doesn't get a great deal of security. But he said he heard an interview that he gave earlier on in the year about his future. He said, well, don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm in control of my own destiny. I know what I'm doing, why I do it, and where I go. So with that in mind, he gets to stay in London. He gets probably a significant pay increase by going to play for well, actually no, maybe not.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that's right.
This is still this afternoon where a deal like so many previously have fallen apart. Are Arsenal willing to pay the wages that he's been on at Chelsea?
Well, they must know. I mean, there's no point going in on transfer deadline day.
I think there might be a bit of wiggle room there.
10 o'clock in the morning to turn around and say, well, your wages are a problem.
Yeah.
They must know.
Yeah. Many Arsenal fans somewhat sceptical as to whether or not Jorginho will be the answer, because having failed with Moises Caicedo, they've turned their attention to Chelsea's Jorginho.
Well, we'll see, won't we? We know Chelsea need players out the door. Hakim Ziyech is another that could well leave on deadline day from Stamford Bridge. Talks between PSG and Chelsea are ongoing. talkSPORT understands PSG want a permanent move. Chelsea would prefer a loan. So we'll see if that goes any further on deadline day. A few other bits. We know the Enzo Fernandez deal is bubbling along. An offer made, British world record offer, 115 million with bonuses. The Benfica Argentine World Cup winner. Harry Souttar to Leicester, the Stoke defender, should get done, £15 million fee. Jack Harrison from Leeds looking more unlikely at this stage, though, for Leicester. A few bits from Southampton and Bournemouth. Southampton edging closer to signing the Braga striker Vitinha, talkSPORT understands. The Portuguese under-21 international as a £26 million buyout clause in his contract. Southampton looking to trigger that. Bournemouth, busy. Matthias Viña on loan from Rome, that was confirmed last night. Hamed Traore from Sassuolo for £20 million. He's having his medical today, the attacking midfielder. And they've agreed a fee in excess of £20 million with Dynamo Kyiv for the Ukrainian international defender Ilya Zabanye as well. So Bournemouth busy on deadline day looking to bolster Gary O'Neill's squad. talkSPORT.com, where you can find our transfer blog for more details.
Okay, Dan Windle with us throughout the morning. Dan, thank you for bringing us right up to date. Harry Souttar getting a move, as Dan says, to Leicester, brother of John Souttar, who went from Hearts to Rangers, of course. We'll keep an eye on that one. So, Simon, we have said it and we'll say it again. Chelsea seemingly making the headlines this morning. Medical staff in Lisbon, a plane waiting in Lisbon, and if all goes to plan, they'll bring the boy Enzo Fernandez from Lisbon to London, to Chelsea later on in the day, in a deal, a British world record deal worth worth £115 million. Here's the thing I want to ask you: would you be more vociferous about Chelsea's business if the same kind of numbers were being produced by the Saudis at Newcastle?
No, I don't necessarily think so. I don't like this spend. I've said don't like this spend. I think it's hugely profligate. I think it's hyperinflating the marketplace. And it's driving a transfer window which they're making 40 to 50% of the spend up. But they're also approaching it slightly differently. They're trying to think their way through it. I don't think that there is any lack of science in this. I think Todd Bowley knows precisely what he's doing and the way that he's doing it. People are sort of sitting around suggesting that because of the fact he's American, because of the fact he suggested there's an all-star game, and because of the fact he got rid of Thomas Tuchel, and because of the fact he wanted to be involved at the beginning of the season, that he doesn't know what he's doing. Every single transaction that he's doing has rhyme and reason behind it, and the financial landscape they're navigating is they're trying to overcome by looking at the transfer spend that they're putting in place, looking at the way they put it on their balance sheet by spreading it over longer term contracts, and looking at who they might sell in the future, and also looking at the values of transfers they brought in when they sold Tammy Abraham, which will support their finances. And when you just listen to Kieran Maguire talk about it, it's the same space that I'm in. First of all, I don't think it's a breach of financial fair play or a loophole in any shape or form. And I think it's absurd that that UEFA are trying to bring it back down to contractual terms that they decide are at 5 years as a maximum. And secondly, you know, the thought process behind it, whilst an element of risk, there's a lot more to it than just Chelsea sitting there like Abramovich did in 2003 and saying, right, boom, here I come. This is a very different purchase than was bought then. I know that Kieran Maguire talked to us about the inflation relationship between what Abramovich spent with Ranieri and then Mourinho in his first few seasons against what they're spending now, and it's actually dwarfing what they're spending now. But let's get some context. What they're spending now is they will have accounted for, in these two transfer markets, in excess, I suspect, if they complete this deal of this Benfica player, of nearly 25% of the entire spend in this country.
$500 million.
Yeah.
About $500 million quid in the two windows.
They go 600 million now, and what was done in August was about 1.4, wasn't it? Something of that nature, give or take, right? They will have accounted for nearly 20, if not more than 25%. One club, by the law of averages, it should be 5% per club. I know it doesn't work that way, but for them to be so dominant in this spend pattern, it signifies the fact that they are the first people to have ever bought a football club for what people perceive these clubs to be worth. You know, when Newcastle gets bought, buying Newcastle for 300 million quid and buying Chelsea for 2.5 billion is like is night and day.
Of course.
So you're not surprised then. Because what I always say, the smallest amount of money you're ever going to spend is the cheque you write out first to buy the club. Well, they're beginning to prove that, because if this is going to be a pattern they continue alongside balancing the finances, selling young players, when they bring players through that might find themselves in the first team, like, say, Trevor Chalobah, and they go and sell him for 25 million quid, if they were to, straight profit that negates some of the depreciation they've got on players they've bought for 80 million quid. And there's thought, and there's proper thinking going behind what Bowley's doing.
Proper thinking. Does it heap more pressure on Potter?
Proper commercial thinking? Well, yeah, of course, because you can't have this embarrassment of riches and produce a team that's the run to the litter.
Yeah,
it needs to be at the top of the tree.
Lose the first couple of games post this window.
We wouldn't be having this conversation, ironically, if Chelsea were in the top four and really doing quite well. The fact that the problem is exacerbated, or the thinking is exacerbated by, hang on a second, you got rid of Thomas Tuchel, who won the Champions League. No one knows the backstory. I've got an understanding of some of the backstory and the reasons why that Tuchel was gone. And quite frankly, if I was in Todd Bowley's shoes, I'd have done the same thing.
I know you know the background to that.
I do. And so with that in mind, there's no surprise there. But you look at it and go, Tuchel's taken out. Bowley's in there as a new American owner that people automatically want to suggest has got a Ted Lasso-ish feel about it.
Yeah.
And they're spending money like drunken sailors, and their team's 10th or 9th in the league. So with all that in mind, it doesn't write a good narrative, but it won't be for long. Chelsea will be at the top of the tree sooner rather than later. But what it does, it could go to your original question. No, I wouldn't be sitting there. I don't like profligacy. I don't like spend for spend's sake. And if Newcastle were spending money, Newcastle spent 200 million quid in two transfer windows. It's insignificant compared to what Chelsea, but significant compared to where Newcastle are coming from. The point they're coming from a huge step off. Ashley spent nothing in the 14 years that he was there. These guys have walked through the door, set it on fire in comparison economically. So we've got to be fair in our thinking. And I've said Newcastle spending has been really good.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You hammered the way Abramovich went about it, because that distorted the entire landscape at the time. Why are you giving Bowley and his people a pass?
But that's not true, you see, because I used to have an argument regularly with Trevor Sinclair when he was in here about why do you always pick on Man City and why do you always pick on PSG, but you never mention Chelsea in the conversation. So that was the right to be correct.
Simon, we asked you about Abramovich's legacy and you ripped him apart.
Yeah, he was... Jack Walker started it first. He came in and took it to a new level, and then Sheikh Mansour took it to an even higher level, or lower level, depends upon your point of view. I think it's a race to the bottom of economics in football. Other people will think it's a race to the top.
But Bowley and Chelsea have taken it to a new level.
Well, of course,
you're giving him a pass.
Well, of course they are, because they are doing something very different than anyone's ever done before. They're buying a football club at some ridiculously absurd value, and football has changed. I never liked what Abramovich did. I liked it even less because he really started it when we arrived in the Premier League in 2004. So it made my life incredibly difficult.
Look at that tongue-in-cheek message there from the Chelsea fan. I absolutely love it when Chelsea ruin football. He's a Chelsea fan.
Well, look, I don't like... The reason why a football club has been bought for 2.5 billion quid, if we like that or we don't like it, is because of Sky and the broadcast deals that were done, and because of the new set of owners that came in, which was started by Abramovich. Has it been a force for good? This runaway train of economics that are paying players too much money and probably valuing clubs at far too much more than what they're really worth. In my view, probably not. But there's no point being King Canute and saying, I tell you what, I'm going to tell the sea to go back just because I don't want it to come rolling forward towards me.
There's a Man City fan. Listen, Simon, if this was Manchester City doing this, you'd be hammering the football club. This is hypocrisy on your part.
So which part of the... Do I need to do it in semaphore so people can hear and see what I'm saying the same thing? I don't like it. I don't think it's...
You're on YouTube and Facebook.
I don't think it's clever. I don't like it. I don't like it when Man City do it, but no one's done it like this. But I also think there is more method to their madness. I mean, Todd Bowley isn't dressing it up as some project where he loves to be in Manchester. He's dressing it up for what it is. It's a private equity play. We're buying a football club. We're going to build an image around the world. We're going to monetize the fans that we've got around the world. We're going to get a whole raft of unanonymized data and use it to build a football club that has inherent value for something we bought $2.5 billion for. It's as clear as day what he's doing. Do I like the fact they're spending 500 million quid to achieve that? Probably not. And it's no different from Man City, and it's no different from Abramovich. Unless you say that they are the devil incarnate, these pillocks that want to pick up on every single word I say get all that, their noses bent out of shape.
You bet they do. There's another one. Is Simon Jordan a secret Chelsea fan?
No, I'm bleeding well not.
Okay, so at the moment we know this. They're after Enzo Fernandez, of course they are. It's a deal that could go up to 115 million. Chelsea in Lisbon. There's a plane there waiting to bring the player over here to London. Medical staff there as well, so you think the medical being done there, and then he's free to travel over here and sign. And that would take Chelsea's spend. That would take the spend to almost 300 million quid. It is quite incredible. We're at 511 million at the moment in this window, and a third of that is Chelsea at 180 million or so. Then add to that another 115. The numbers are mind-boggling. We're coming up to 11.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.